Attention passionate Montreal, Canadiens fans. Latest news, something big is happening in the Atlantic Division and it could shake up the entire conference. We're talking about a direct impact on Montreal Canadiens' path to another Stanley Cup run, a power shift that could leave a division rival stumbling for years. We're bringing this to you firsthand. But before that, if you're a true Montreal Canadiens fan, subscribe to the channel to strengthen this passion even more. Show that you're also part of this family. Let's help each other reach 1,000 subscribers. Share with your friends and Montreal Canadiens fans. Let's get to the news. Now, folks, when we talk about the Canadiens, we know that this team has a rich history, one filled with legendary moments, iconic players, and seasons that have left us on the edge of our seats. But what's really exciting now is the subtle, yet potentially game-changing moves that could alter the course of this franchise moving forward. And one of those moves, apparently, involves bringing back a familiar face, someone who's loved by the fans, someone who could fit perfectly into the current roster and fill a crucial gap that Montreal has been struggling with for quite some time. That's right. We're talking about Phillip Danault, a player whose departure in 2021 still stings for many fans, but whose name is now being floated around as a potential piece to help propel the Canadiens back into playoff contention. Let's rewind a little and remember what happened in the summer of 2021. The Canadiens, after a deep playoff run in 2021 that saw them push the Tampa Bay Lightning to the limit, made a decision that surprised many of us. They let Phillip Danault walk. Danault had expressed a clear desire to stay in Montreal, after all. He was a Quebec native, a player who embodied the heart and soul of the Canadiens with his relentless style and leadership qualities. But unfortunately, a disagreement over salary, just $500,000, mind you, caused the Canadiens to let him walk, and he signed with the Los Angeles Kings. And what happened? Well, Danault took that opportunity and ran with it. In his first season with the Kings, he scored a career-high 27 goals, and overall, in 4 seasons, he racked up an impressive 195 points in 319 games. That's no small feat for a player known more for his defensive prowess and two-way game. But here's the thing, the Kings are now at a crossroads. They've been a team that's trying to find that balance between developing young talent and competing for the playoffs. And after 4 straight first-round exits, it's clear they need to shake things up. That's where the speculation starts to heat up. Could Danault return to Montreal? Is that even feasible? Well, insiders like Marc-Olivier Beaudin have floated the idea that Danault could be the second-line center the Canadiens have been desperately searching for. Why is that so intriguing? Because Danault, at 32, still has 2 seasons left on his contract, earning around $5 million per year. He's a versatile player, capable of playing both center and wing, and he's known for his exceptional face-off skills and defensive reliability. Think about it, in Montreal, Danault could slide into that second-line center role, a spot that's been somewhat of a revolving door for the Canadiens in recent seasons. With the likes of Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and others leading the charge, adding a player like Danault could provide that veteran presence and offensive punch that could make their top lines even more dangerous. Plus, he's a player who fits the Montreal mold, gritty, determined, and with a deep understanding of what it means to wear the Canadiens sweater. Now, some fans might wonder, would the Kings ever trade Danault? Are they in a win-now mode? Well, the Kings are definitely trying to push for a deep playoff run, and they might not be willing to part with one of their key players unless the deal makes sense. But considering Montreal's need for a reliable second-line center and Danault's familiarity with the organization, this could be a perfect fit, especially if the Canadiens are willing to include some assets in the deal. Maybe a draft pick or a promising prospect, something to make the trade appealing for Los Angeles. And let's not forget, Danault's style of play and leadership qualities could be exactly what Montreal needs to elevate their game, especially in the playoffs. What's even more interesting is how this potential move ties into the bigger picture. The Canadiens are in a bit of a transitional phase. They're rebuilding, but also trying to stay competitive, and they need those veteran pieces who can stabilize the lineup while the young players develop. Bringing back Danault would send a message that the Canadiens are serious about competing now, not just rebuilding for the future. It's a move that could energize the locker room, excite the fanbase, and most importantly, improve their chances in the crowded Atlantic Division. Speaking of the division, the Atlantic has become one of the most competitive in recent years. The Tampa Bay Lightning, Toronto Maple Leafs, Florida Panthers, and Boston Bruins have all been battling fiercely. Last season, the Canadiens showed flashes of brilliance, but consistency was often an issue. Adding a player like Danault, who has proven he can perform under pressure, could be a key piece in Montreal's puzzle to climb back into the playoff picture. And let's face it, having a familiar face like Danault in the lineup might also boost team chemistry and morale, especially for the fans who remember his days in Montreal with fondness. But of course, there's also the question of timing. Would Montreal be willing to part with assets now? Is Danault himself interested in returning? Those are questions that only time will answer. But the mere possibility has already generated buzz among analysts and fans alike. Some see it as a smart move, a way for the Canadiens to bolster their depth without overhauling the roster completely. Others are more skeptical, wondering if it's just wishful thinking. But history has shown us that in the NHL, surprises happen all the time, and trades involving familiar faces are not uncommon. And let's not forget, Montreal's management has shown willingness to make bold moves when the time is right. The team's recent trades and signings have demonstrated a clear desire to contend. So, while nothing is set in stone yet, the idea of bringing back Philip Danault remains a hot topic. It's the kind of move that could energize the fanbase, rekindle memories of that deep playoff run, and give Montreal a shot in the arm as they chase their next Stanley Cup. Now, as fans, we have to wonder how this would impact the current roster. Would Danault slot into the second line seamlessly? Would he be paired with certain players that could maximize his offensive potential while still playing his renowned shutdown role? And what about the chemistry with current center Nick Suzuki, who's been developing into one of the league's top young stars? These are questions that make this hypothetical scenario so fascinating. In terms of stats and recent performance, Danault has proven he can be a reliable two-way player, and that's exactly what the Canadiens need. They've been looking for that balanced forward who can contribute offensively, but also shut down the opposing team's top lines. His experience and leadership could be invaluable, especially with a relatively young core that's eager to make a splash. Plus, with the upcoming season approaching, the window for potential trades is narrowing, and fans are eager to see moves that could make a real difference. Now, thinking ahead, if Montreal manages to pull off such a trade, it could be a sign that they're shifting gears from a pure rebuild to a more competitive approach. And that's exciting, isn't it? Because the Canadiens have always been a team about winning now and in the future, blending experienced veterans with young talent. Bringing back Danault would be a perfect embodiment of that philosophy, and it's worth noting that the fan sentiment for Danault remains strong. Many supporters still consider him a hero, a player who embodied everything great about the Canadiens: grit, heart, and unyielding determination. Of course, this all remains in the realm of speculation for now, but it's a compelling storyline that could develop as the offseason progresses. The trade deadline, free agency, and team management strategies are all factors that will influence whether this reunion becomes a reality. And if it does, it could be one of those moves that turns the tide for Montreal, giving them not just a boost in talent, but also in spirit and confidence. So, as we keep an eye on the latest rumors and developments, one thing is clear: the Montreal Canadiens are always looking for ways to improve, to get that edge, and to bring back the magic of Stanley Cup glory days. Whether or not Danault returns, the team's future remains bright, filled with potential and promise. Fans, we're in for an exciting ride ahead, and I promise to keep you updated on all the news, rumors, and insider info as it unfolds. Pause here just for a second. If you want the YouTube algorithm to keep recommending the latest Montreal Canadiens news to you, it's super important that you leave a like on this video. Go ahead, it's quick and it makes a big difference. Thank you. Now let us continue with the big reveal. And now, Montreal Canadiens fans, I want to hear from you. What's your take on this? Would you love to see Danault back in the blue, blanc, and rouge? Do you think it's the right move for the team's future? Or do you believe they should focus on developing their young core and look elsewhere? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your opinion matters so much to us and to the Canadiens. And don't forget, I'll be back soon with more updates, so stay tuned for the latest Montreal Canadiens news. Thanks for being part of this incredible journey, and as always, go Habs!